Greetings everyone, welcome back to Lemex Effects. So, this is another Dark Souls video, but it's a little different. You see, before I was trying to show you how the humans of Dark Souls represent the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and anyone from those groups who were scattered because of slavery. For example, the Dalits, the Kunlun, the Zangzi, etc. But my last script became about 3,000 words long, and that's about 30 minutes. A bit too long, I think. And I know it gets that long because not only do I have to cover a lot of topics, but I also have to take time to handle objections. So, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to start over, kind of. See, instead of just telling you about the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Dark Souls, I'll tell you about all the races that appear in Dark Souls. This video that I'm doing now will be more like an intro, the first episode of that playlist. And the purpose of this episode is to explain what you're getting yourself into and give a basic overview of what I'm going to talk about in this playlist. Well, with that, let us begin. Okay, before we begin, you need to know what my channel is about. So, Lemex Effects is about finding the Bible in video games. So, I am looking for the Bible in Dark Souls. Now, with that said, Hidetaka Miyazaki, the creator of Dark Souls, said that the game is based on medieval Europe. So, in the game, turns out there are 4 races that have major roles to play in Dark Souls. They are Gravelord Nito and his Army of the Dead, the Witch of Izalith and her Daughters of Chaos, Gwyn and his Warriors of Sunlight, and lastly, the Furtive Pygmy. Why'd I just name that one race as a one person? We'll figure that out later. Anyway, interestingly, in medieval Europe, like Miyazaki said, there are also 4 races that have major roles to play in the Dark Ages. They are the Africans, the Arabians, the Caucasians, and black people. Also, notice that I have Africans and black people as 2 separate races. That's going to be very important later, so do not forget that. Anyway, the goal of this series is twofold. First, I must prove that Gravelord Nito represents the Africans. The Witch of Izalith represents the Arabians. Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, represents Caucasians. And the Furtive Pygmy represents blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Alright, so the second goal is to show you the original biblical name for each of these groups. And to achieve both of these goals, we will start with the Bible, and I will tell you the history starting around 300 BC with Alexander the Great and the Greek Empire. And we're going to see how that relates to Dark Souls. Then we will continue to the Roman Empire and how it is the Age of Fire in Dark Souls. After that, we will continue through medieval times, also called the Dark Ages, or, if we want to sound fancy, the Age of Dark. And after that, the Caucasians will rekindle the first flame during the Renaissance. And finally, we will explore how all of this culminates into modern times. And when you know these things, you will know biblically why Gwyn was afraid of the Dark Soul, and how this fear was enacted by Caucasians and the Roman Catholic Church in real-world history. Spoiler, it was a transatlantic slave trade. Oh yes, if I wasn't clear, what I was basically saying is I'm going to show you all of the history of Europe as it occurs in Dark Souls. Anyway, you probably wonder why you should watch these videos and this series rather than the thousands, millions, billions of videos that are on YouTube. Well, let's put things into perspective. In Dark Souls, you as the player, not the character, not just the character, but the player, you have no idea what the heck is going on. You start the game with only the barest idea of the story. You know that there was a war between Gwyn and the dragons, but you don't know why. You know how Gwyn won the war, but you don't know why that matters. And you know that the flames are fading and your character has the curse of the dark side, but you don't know how these two thoughts are related. You play the game, but you don't know what's going on. But what you do know is that everyone wants to kill you. Whether you did something to them or not, usually you are not the one who initiates conflict. Even when the world leaders like Guinevere and Gwendolyn send you on a mission to save their kingdom, all of their subordinates try to kill you. And you will think, I thought we were on the same team. Why are you trying to kill me? Now, hold these images and those feelings in your mind and realize, as a Black, Hispanic, or Native American person, you are in the same condition. You know the barest semblance of your history, of the world's history. You know that Caucasians rule Europe, but you don't know why that matters. You know that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans were enslaved by Caucasians, but you don't know why. And when you fight in their wars, join their covenants, their religions, and go on missions to kill for their leaders, the Caucasian populace still tries to kill you. They hang you on trees and they bomb you, and we have news articles about them killing you today. Not just the cops, but if you're just jogging in your own neighborhood, some civilian will take it upon himself to shoot you. And you would think, I thought we were on the same team. Why are all of you trying to kill me? The problem is, in both cases, you are playing your game without a win condition. When I say game, I mean the game of Dark Souls and the game of your real life. You don't have a win condition. W-I-N, as in victory. A win condition is the thing that must be done to achieve your goals. And I think it's safe to say that your goal is to stop dying. Isn't that why you join their religions? Isn't that why you vote? Isn't that why you marry them? Isn't that why you fight in their wars? Isn't that why you do anything for them? Everything you do is to try to get Caucasians to stop killing your people. And you probably would just look at me and say, no, I'm not just trying not to die. I want to be accepted. But again, you only want to be accepted so they will stop killing you. And in Dark Souls is the same. You want to stop the fate of death that follows your character's race. So, with that said, what is the win condition? How do you get what you want, which is to stop dying? The problem is, unless you know the history of the game, you cannot know what the win condition is. For example, someone who knows nothing about the history of Dark Souls would think that the win condition is to sacrifice his life to the fire. But if you played Dark Souls, you know better. You know that all this does is require more sacrifices and more death, and Gwyn's race will still kill you. And instead, you realize that the true win condition is to let the flame of Gwyn's kingdom fade. The only way to stop them from killing you is if they no longer have the power to do so. So let their flames fade, and if they die in the process, so be it. A sentiment that would make someone who doesn't know the story say, "What? Why? That sounds like hate speech. Why do you hate Gwyn so much? You are full of hatred. You need to learn to love." But it's not hate speech, but it's, we must do what it takes to survive, if you know that reference. And in the same token, you don't know what the win condition for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans is. You don't know because you don't know the history of how you got to this point. Why were you chosen to be slaves out of all the races in the world? All the other people who didn't have the power to fight Caucasians, and you were chosen? All the other people with black skin, and you were chosen? Why? And why do other countries flock to save other races who have nothing to do with them, but no one tries to help you? Why is it that if you try to run to Asia or Arabia or India to escape racism from Caucasians, you still face racism from everyone else? Just why? If you knew the history, you would know. Wait. While the words for story and history are the same in Spanish, there are two different things in English. Let me try that again. What I meant to say was, if you knew the history of what other races did in the past, you would know what the end goal of these other races is. And therefore, that would tell you what your current story is, which is what you must do in order to save yourself. And if you knew the answers and you used them to complete your story, you won't take more suffering from them. So, let's be a different beast now. And let us begin. In the beginning, the earth was without form and void. And the Lord said, "Let there be light." And there was the first flame.